This is maybe a seemingly simple question, but I'll ask it anyway. Since you're a professor, you can answer that. You know, lots of people will say that, you know, a story is really all about conflict, you know, what somebody wants and stuff like that, you know. The nurse will look in, I read her, and she says, well, you know, that conflict is kind of a militaristic thing. Really, a story is just about some kind of movement. You've written a lot of goofy stories. I use goofy.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Say anything you'd like.
What's your definition of what a story is?
Well, the thing you've got, I would say this, you have to honor your characters by allowing them lives. So I'm always saying about any story, into what life, there's an event. If two kids will get across the river, or if somebody's going to get to, her mother's going to find out she wears too much makeup, doesn't matter, whatever matters to you, but into what life has this moment come? And so we dishonor our characters when we don't make them capable. The only thing I would say about a story is everybody in your, and I've written a lot of stories, as you said, everybody in your story has to be as bright as the author. Now, I've never heard anybody else say that, but it's true, because otherwise you get the other. You get these kind of straw dogs who serve the plot. And the truth is, there's a lot of straw dogs, and sometimes in genre fiction there are. And so, into what life has this event come? Everybody in the story is as bright as the author, and no one's serving the plot. They're not. If you've got a, you know, there's all these scenes in films where they go to the gentleman's club, and there's all these ladies dancing and stuff like that. Well, those ladies are not dancing for my guy, so my detective can find out where, you know, who shot the robin, but they're in there because they got this miserable job and they're trying to make some money. First of all, they're not earning their tuition. We know that's an urban myth. But everybody's in the story. Everybody has a right to be in the story. They're not in the story for the author. So if you can keep that, then it almost doesn't matter. Sometimes it is movement. I remember conflict. There's a lot of words I remember from my school days. One was setting, which is a reader's term for place, and I use place a great deal because I couldn't write without place. I've written some voice pieces, the Boiling Oil story and other monologues, Bigfoot Stole My Wife, but even they depend on place. And another word we learn in high school is theme, and that's what I was saying earlier, is it's a word I almost never use. If you write the story well, if you pay attention and get it close, your theme, you can't, you know, Annie Dillard said it best. She said, you scratch an event, the theme comes out. So you can't, there are writers who work for theme, and I'm not one of them. I think there are some themes in my books. I had an incident with that story, The Ordinary Son, which was in a couple of the anthologies, The Best American or whatever. And so I got these letters one time, these emails this is about the year 2000. They said, oh, Mr. Carlson, you're such a good writer. Hey, what's the theme of that story, The Ordinary Son? You know, I'd really like to know. And then I began to say, you know, and so I wrote back, the one I wrote back, I don't write for theme. What theme did you have in mind? They said. I said, I don't write for theme. I write because this is a kid who has a job maintaining a terrible motel at the edge of Houston, Texas in 1966. And I based on kind of an experience that I had. And she wrote me back, this is high school kid. She said, thanks for writing back. That's the wrong answer. I can't, come on, give me something I can use. My teacher's waiting. So I looked at the story and I said, oh, there's some themes in there. And one of them is being smart doesn't mean you'll have peace of mind. And then I got a whole bunch of emails. I had like 7. And I wrote them all back with different, there's all these themes. I read the story again, there was a lot of themes in there. And, and you know where they were Canadian kids. They were from Montreal. There was some kind of, my story was on some kind of exit exam. But no, so that's the opposite when she said that's the wrong answer. Because the story I'm writing now, I'm writing a story now, I'll tell you about it, that is about a, I don't know where, I have a lot of students out there. My student, one of the people who came to the breakfast in Rhode Island was a kid, I hadn't seen him, he was in the first class I taught, high school class of 1972, and he's sitting there, this guy's 55 years old, he's a surgeon. And, why did I say that? I forgot. But I have all of these students out there.
The story you're working on.
Oh, the story I'm working on now is about a, I'll just say it, won't hurt me. So a lot of my students are considering whether to go on with their writing. They get to be 29, 30, 32. What I tell them is what happened to me is after I got out of college, from the ages of 23 to 33, I taught at a prep school, a high school, which was omnivorous. It got me hoof, height, and bone. We had Saturday classes. I taught grammar to sophomores on Saturday mornings for 10 years. There's no better training for a teacher. So then they want to know if they should go on with it. And so I'm writing about this rock band, and this rock band, these kids are trying to decide if they're going to quit. And when do you put it up? When do you stop? And they decide, anyway, then the tall tale premise of my story is that there's a song. I got this idea. Someone was giving a lecture. Anyway, so sometimes when you're trapped in, or maybe some of you are having ideas now because you're trapped. Whenever I'm trapped, faculty meetings. But the point is that so there's a song that's cursed, and every band that's ever covered this song, all the members perish. So they're trying to decide if they should quit or if they should. And one of them's doing research on he's trying to find this cursed song. So I think I'm going to be able to use some fun to say something sort of about our commitment to art.
So it has a theme.
Well, I guess I'm caught out. It's real interesting that when you write a story, when I write a story, I tell my students this, and it's true, it's not important that you understand or be able to explain your story. If you write it well, someone else will come along and do that. You need to you write it, and as soon as you finish writing it, you only have one job, and it's sort of natural, and that is to be in love with it. You made that thing. Keep it up. Don't let anybody say a thing about that. Don't you say anything about my story. Then that'll fade a little bit, and then you'll be able to bring in your judicious side and make it strong.
So you're saying you build the house, and then you let people come and inhabit it, and that kind of gives the story the meaning that is already there, perhaps, but it gets discovered?
Yeah, the readers come along. If you make the thing well, the readers will come. They'll find your theme.
There was a piece in the New York Times last Sunday about difficulties some poets have being at universities. And I'm also a professor, but in a different area. I'm curious how students have enriched or detracted from your life as a writer.
Well, it's interesting. What I teach is very clearly an investigation. I mean, my father was an engineer. We compared notes about all our lives. And the idea of using the scientific method in many ways. So we say, if you take the daughter out of the story, what's the net effect? Okay, so, and the rule about the daughter or Mexico or the lost wallet, get it in or get it out. It's got to be viable. It's got to have leverage. So there's a lot of, so I'm in. I mean, I'm excited about these next years teaching. I have a lot of friends my age that have wanted to write their way out of the university. Do you see? And John Irving was an example. I knew him when he wrote Garp. And we were corresponding. He wanted to come to the prep school where I taught. He wanted to teach wrestling, coach wrestling. His son was about that age at the time. And John Irving was very kind to me. But then his book quit, and he just said, to heck with all of it. He let go. They'd just given him a post at Mount Holyoke, and he walked away from it. And there are a lot of writers like that, hoping to write out. You know, I never had it. I've always taught, I'll always teach. It cost me a few books, but I wouldn't have traded any of the books I would have had for the free time for what I found out. I wrote a little book on writing. Did you see that, Seth? Ron Carlson Writes a Story? Yeah. And I'm glad I did. And I want to write another book about the acquisition and pedagogy and approaches, strategies for teaching writing, because when I wrote that book, I wanted to write a book that I was looking for when I was 20. And that's really, and I did it. I mean, that's the book I wanted. It's not a great book, but it's a serviceable book. And it's frank and radical in that way, in its look at decisions a writer makes.